Back, I'm Matt Bamonte, joined by Wyatt Darby here. Getting ready to kick off round 5 out of 7 here at our modern trial in Indianapolis, Indiana. Joe and I just watched a bunch of spell-based combo and creature-based combo, and it was wild. Like, things started exploding all over the place. We watched Jeskai Ascendancy combo versus Storm. That was quite the interesting one.
Not too bad, bit of a drag race there.
Yeah.
And, I was out on the floor. I watched this really hype match. It was humans against Amulet.
Okay.
With Amulet player at 1 life. Both players about 5 creatures in play. There's a bunch of lethal top decks. Mantis Rider, Kessig Malcontent, all this does it. But the Amulet player draws a bounce land, which you'd think normally not that good in a long, drawn-out game. But because of the creatures Amulet player has in play, he can play the bounce land 7 times and deal his opponent 21. Just kill you out of nowhere. Boom, 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 boom,
Oh,
boom.
no.
And, yeah, it was kind of amazing.
That is fantastic. All right, well, we're going to get ready to kick off our 5th round here in just a second. I think we have, snow control. We have a Sultai Snow versus Abzan Heliod combo. So another combo deck. This time it's a creature variant, though.
Yeah, it's not the Sultai Snow deck, not too far from some of the Bant Snowblade lists we saw earlier.
Yeah.
But instead of the, white disruption in the form of Teferi and Path to Exile, you're leaning into discard, Thoughtseize, really big pickup, Drown the Lock. And I don't know the exact list yet, but I hope we have some Dead of Winter somewhere. That's a really efficient, pretty sweet sweeper.
For sure. All right, sounds like they're ready to roll, so we're going to jump into our first game. It's going to be Phil Silberman on the left with Sultai Snow versus Adam, I believe it's Rayshig is how you say it, and he's playing Abzan Heliod combo.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's the deck name Abzan Heliod combo, pretty fair, but I think kind of just looking at how these lists are typically built, it's actually going to be pretty similar to just like kind of old Devoted Devastation in a lot of the cards. You're still going to see Collected Company, you're still going to see a lot of the same mana dorks. It's just kind of looking for a bit of a different way to properly end the game.
Yeah. You could see a Heliod actually on the bottom of Adam's deck there as he shuffles through. Going to lead off with a Birds of Paradise. And Phil has Uro in hand. All right, so Adam Rashig going to lead off with a Mana Accelerant, and Phil Silverman going to play a Breeding Pool on his first turn here. That definitely doesn't signify any sort of control deck to me. When I see Breeding Pool, I probably would think something like an Infect deck maybe. So we'll see how Phil's next several turns shape up. There's a Fatal Push picked up for the turn.
Yeah, both kind of great and awkward timing for the Fatal Push. You would love to have it at the end step, and with Phil not spending his 1 mana last turn, probably going to strand a mana this turn, and playing a little bit behind curve, not a huge deal against a combo deck that certainly can go long in Heliod, but just a little bit off from the ideal.
Yeah, Adam picks up Horizon Canopy, which looks like it's about to be the play for the turn here. So he goes back and thinks about what he wants to do. Second Windswept Heath is deployed here. He's going to go looking through his deck and finds Godless Shrine. Okay. We'll see where Adam decides to go on his second turn here. Looks like a Noble Hierarch followed by Giver of Runes. Okay.
Yeah, kind of in a lot of ways medium creatures, but Giver of Runes is a really nice layer of protection to have to your combo.
Yeah.
It sort of, acts closer to a Benevolent Bodyguard than Mother of Runes, but if you want to protect your Spike Feeder and make sure you can gain infinite life, it does the job just the same.
Yeah. All right, so Phil going to go ahead and continue deploying lands. It looks like he has an Ice Fang Codal in hand. Only 1 snow-covered permanent in play at this point, though.
Yeah, when you don't have the Arkham's Astrolabe, you tend to just kind of fetch shock lands pretty efficiently, but that can actually come back to bite you a little bit. Not so much against this Abzan deck that kind of more engages in combo kills more so than traditional beatdown.
Yeah, and it looks like Phil's going to go ahead and try and jam this Ice Fang Codal at Adam's end step. Adam's going to fetch out with the Verdant Catacombs. I wonder if does he have Collected Companies in his deck?
He does, and I think we're going to see one unloaded right here. Reasonable timing from Adam, just making sure to do his best to kind of duck any counter spells that are possible. From everything you've seen so far from Phil, wouldn't be a shocker to have like Cryptic Command really on your radar.
Yep. All right, so Adam, as you mentioned, heads up play here. Going to go ahead and go for a Collected Company, and Phil, I was going to say, what does he have for 1 mana? I'd say looking like for maybe Force of Negation. He has a pair in his deck. Does not find one. says, all right, collect the company happens. And the powerful card is going to look at 6 cards here. And wow, there's a Heliod in there. Lots of stuff going on.
Yeah, so half the combo assembled. And, he could go for, it looks like Anafenza's pulled to the front. I'm actually unsure how often this Heliod combo deck is able to get enough devotion to just attack with the 5/5. But, that's kind of part of what Adam might be going for here as he finishes resolving that company.
Yeah, Anafenza, the Kintree Spirits, is on the field now. That Heliod is menacing, that's for sure. So let's see. All right, so Phil says, okay, never mind, I'm just an idiot, I think is what he said out loud. I think I heard him out loud. So you see Anafenza Kintree Spirit here. White, 2/2. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under control, bolster 1, which is a mechanic that really wasn't too popular during its time.
Yeah, and kind of to quickly break down Anafenza's role in this deck, it's actually a bit of a jump starter for the Heliod Ballista combo. Typically, to make that happen, it takes a lot of mana. You need to have a Ballista with 2 counters, so that's typically 4 mana. You need to activate Heliod's lifelink ability for an extra 2 more. But with an Anafenza in play, you can cast a Ballista X = 1. It'll come into play, pick up a second counter, and then you just need 4 total to lifelink it up, and you're off to the races. So, yeah, pretty smart synergy choice. That actually does help when you're just kind of, attacking with modest creatures, too.
All right, and Phil's going to fire for Thoughtseize, and he picks off... I couldn't see what he picked off there. Was it Ranger Captain of Eos? Okay. And there's another Anafenza, which is no good on this board, and a Horizon Canopy, the leftovers for Adam. All right. And Phil has some more stuff going on. I think he's just looking for a land drop at this point.
Yeah, kind of awkward from Phil. Just the Uro sitting in hand, really wanted to, make it onto the battlefield, but just it's so costly to deploy at this point. You have to commit a turn to just playing the explorability, which is not really even close to impactful enough. And then once you're there, you're going to have to find yourself a second green source to actually cast the escape cost.
Yeah. All right. So here is a Tarmogoyf for Phil. It's a 4/5. It's pretty good sized right now. Doesn't really rumble with Heliod, but not a lot. Not a lot does. And Adam, with these 3 cards left in hand now, has 1 unknown.
Yeah, just kind of mapping out his turn, debating. I think the Horizon Canopy is certainly an option. In a lot of spots, you do like to give yourself use all your card draw first to make sure you can make the most informed decisions. But, Heliod is actually a pretty potent mana sink, too. So that could be kind of contending or competing with Kraken Canopy.
Yeah, all right. So Adam going to send it back Phil's way. And Phil picked up, looks like a Snapcaster Mage for the turn. And he's got Archmage's Charm. He's got a lot of stuff. He's just missing lands at this point, and not a great place to be in your control deck. Missing land drops, and also the board's just kind of flooded, and Adam's, a piece away from the combo here.
Yeah, and the most brutal part about that is that Giver Rune still sitting in play, still making sure if a combo piece shows up, really the only recourse Phil's going to have for that is a counterspell, which he does have with the Archmage's Charm, but in some ways, you actually kind of want to fire that off as a divination just so you can hit your land drops and actually kind of, match the number of spells Adam's playing each turn.
Yeah, so Adam's up to 4 cards in hand now. 3 unknowns. There's another land drop made. All right. And Adam just not a lot to do. Again, the Anafenza that's in hand is just kind of a dead one here, as there's one already on the battlefield.
Yeah, no great attacks. Tarmogoyf is doing a great job of being a solid roadblock. And, with no attacks, you have no opportunities really to lifelink with Heliod and start growing creatures. So kind of stuck in a holding pattern here for Adam. And Phil is ever so slightly ratcheting up the pressure. Second Ice Fang just doing a little bit.
Yeah, second Ice Fang there for Phil. He also picked up, looked like an Assassin's Trophy for the turn there. So he's not in too bad a shape at this point.
Yeah, actually, I think a bit of a difficult decision regarding that fetch land from Adam. That does accelerate the clock that Phil has by a full turn to do so. So fetching, definitely not free. Depending on what cards were found off the collected company, you might want to reshuffle those back into circulation in your library. But still, I think it's something that's kind of often overlooked.
Yeah, let's see what Adam goes for here. Huh. Both these players 4-0. A win likely to double draw them into the top 8 here. So pretty big match for these guys.
Yeah, and if you're sitting in Phil's seat here, I mean, what could you really put Adam on to have in hand? There's been multiple turns without collected company. Most creatures probably get played, and here we do see a Kitchen Finks, probably the draw for the turn for Adam.
Yeah, that one's a good one here. It's going to be able to, number one, it's going to gain Adam some life. It's also going to trigger this Heliod. I played a lot of this Heliod in Standard. The mono-white deck, I don't think it's very good, but it's definitely a lot of fun.
Yeah, comboing Heliod and Linden just feels kind of like a dream, and I don't know, I think Mono White Devotion might be the worst deck in Pioneer, but by God, I'm still wasting tickets on it on Magic Online. So,
all right, so Adam's going to resolve that Heliod trigger here, and it's going to put a counter on, looks like the Anafenza.
Yeah, and Kitchen Fink's doing wonders for Devotion, too. That puts Heliod over the requisite 5, and it's coming in. So Phil is really put to the test on having some way to try and interact, but again, Giver of Runes makes just one removal spell. It's kind of no good. Yeah,
you see Heliod's Sun Crown there on the screen for 3 mana. It's a 5/5 indestructible. As long as your Devotion to white is less than 5, Heliod is not a creature, which Adam has plenty of Devotion currently. And then the trigger we just saw, whenever you gain a life, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or enchantment you control. It also has the clause, which makes it kind of relevant in this combo, actually. For 2 mana, you get to give another target creature lifelink. So with the Walking Ballista, that's how you combo off pretty quickly.
Yeah, and in Modern, you do actually get access to Spike Feeder as well. Yep. You get a second kind of infinite life combo, and it's tough. It's interesting for Phil. It's kind of hard for him to die, particularly quickly with all these extra Ice Fangs floating around. Yeah. And Adam's life is kind of the one that's a little bit in danger, but I think Kitchen Finks is a much more expendable creature in a lot of ways, so we might see that get in the red zone, so Adam can kind of get himself out of, kind of immediate danger.
Yeah, I'm wondering if the life totals are correct here, if Adam's back down to 8. I think he went up and then back down. He might be at 8 exactly, because I think Phil has a Cryptic Command in hand, and almost enough. I think it's almost enough to finish him off. Depends on what Adam's life total is, if it is 8 indeed. And Phil's going to go ahead and fetch. Let's see what happens here. So Phil going to fetch out. Is it Mystic Sanctuary? Yeah, he's got a Mystic Sanctuary here. He's only playing 1 in his deck today, which, 3-color deck fits in a Mystic Sanctuary in there, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if you're a deck that wants to cast Cryptic Command anyway, it's kind of too close to a free roll really not to invest in it a little bit. And, one way to get around the protection from Giver is just to tap a team entirely, and that's going to take all of Adam's creatures kind of out of combat relevantly, and Phil's also, bouncing that Sanctuary. So right now, he kind of has that for the foreseeable future, but here it is with Phil tapped out. Adam has Walking Ballista, which combined with Anafenza and Heliod might just be the end of the game.
Gonna do it. Yeah, and you can see the combo here, and Phil says, "Yep, you got me." So Adam gonna win. Man, I'm pretty shocked that he won that game. Actually, given the position that he was in, like towards the mid game. But Phil not able to close the door, and Adam just walks right in and steals the game away. So Adam gonna be up 1-0 over Phil Silverman's Sultai Snow deck, which we'll take a peek at the sideboards here. Phil has an additional Force of Negation to add to his deck, 2 Disdainful Strokes, 2 Mystical Disputes, a Kalitas, Trader of Get, 2 Dead of Winter, 2 Veil of Summer, 3 Ashiok Dreamrender, and 2 Damping Spheres. There's tons of cards here for Phil to bring in.
Yeah, the real standouts for me, Kalitas seems fantastic. There's, we saw the Kitchen Finks really reliant on recursion. And also just you're trying to pick your opponent apart, and each zombie you make can get pretty close to trading for a full creature. Yeah. Dead of Winter, also an excellent way to attack any deck that's reliant on mana dorks. And looking at Adam's list here, at least 6 1-mana accelerants kind of floating around, so plenty of fodder for the Dead of Winter.
Yeah, for sure. On Adam's side in his Abzan Heliod combo deck, there are 2 Aven Mind Sensor, 2 Caustic Caterpillar, 4 Path to Exile, 2 Scavenging Ooze, 3 Thoughtseize, and 2 Veil Summer. I want to ask you about Scavenging Ooze. Most of these decks, you could assume Phil, so he didn't see a lot, though. He didn't see Uro, he didn't see Snapcaster Mage, but I think you can safely assume that those cards exist. So is Scavenging Ooze something you want here, you think?
Yeah, it seems phenomenal. For even just the cards that we did see, Scavenging Ooze has been kind of Goyf's big nemesis in Modern for a long time. It also kind of shuts off the Mystic Sanctuary Cryptic Command loop. Yeah. And being a deck that a lot of games will care about the combat step. I think it's important to have that. And also, Scavenging Ooze plus Heliod is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
for 1 mana, you get 2+1/+1 counters across different creatures, and that can really kind of overpower a lot of what Phil's bringing to play.
For sure. I am interested to see if Phil's deck is able to keep up. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff going on. Again, there's the 2 Force Negations. There's an additional one coming in from the sideboard. I think he's going to be able to play a little bit better. I don't know. I don't know what you're cutting in this, though. Jace the Mind Sculptor seems pretty medium, but how is she going to win the game?
Yeah, it's tough. Cards like Archmage's Charm are a little bit expensive. Force of Negation, I think, could probably go, although, honestly, Collected Company is kind of always an ever-present threat. Yeah. It might just be a card that, clutch when you can use it, but might just be a little bit dead too often.
Yeah.
And, if you ask me, honestly, just a quick Uro could be the easiest way. If Phil could put that on the battlefield, there's really very little recourse from this Abzan deck.
Okay. I was going to ask you about Uro being a card if you wanted to leave in, because the ground just gets gummed up so quickly. There's a lot of chump blockers and things like that, but it is fairly large, and if you've got your opponent under the abyss, that's probably good enough to get the job done.
Yeah, and if anything else, the beauty of it, just the repeated card advantage is it only asks for the mana just up front that one time. Yeah. So why don't we take a look at Phil's player profile? He was one of our competitors at last year's End of the Year Championship.
Yeah.
He's a 30-year-old data analyst from Chicago, Illinois, with 2 top 8s and a win. He did top 8 in SCG Open in St. Louis back in 2014. He has 2 classic wins as well. Favorite card from Theros Beyond Death, Elspeth Conquers Death.
Good one.
It is, it's like everything that I ever really wanted Eldritch Reborn to be.
Yeah.
I'll play it for the bad removal spell, but hey, sometimes I get it to fairy back. Or you ever discard a Dream Trawler to a Dream Trawler when you're about to pop off Elspeth?
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
So, and some facts about Phil, though, he tries to bake something new each week.
Okay.
He's eaten 3 5-pound bags of gummy bears. It's not bad.
And
his hot take is Avatar: The Last Airbender is the best TV show ever.
Best TV show ever? That is pretty steep praise.
Yeah, better than, I don't know, like The Wire was
I would
really
say The
good.
Wire, Sopranos, Game of Thrones. Come on, man. Really? Like, they're better than these things? That is certainly a scalding hot take.
I actually was hoping that was about the movie.
Okay.
Because I know that one not quite universally praised, but
Avatar,
I think M. Night, it's his constant goal with that guy.
Yeah, man, that's good stuff. Elspeth Conquers Death, just to talk about this card for another minute. You ever bounce that thing with Teferi, the Time Raveler, before? It's just hilarious. I mean, this card's busted. It does a lot of good stuff. I mean, people are playing like up to 4 in their blue-white control decks in the main deck.
Yeah, it really kind of shifted how the control strategies are built. You get a pretty solid tap-out element, between the 3-mana Planeswalkers that play so well with Elspeth Conquers Death, the namesake card, and honestly, just it really kind of facilitates Dream Trawler as well, just making sure that even if you have to sweep the board away, you haven't lost your win condition, even if it died. And I think it's fantastic. Saga's seeing competitive play is a really, I think, a tough balance to hit. And I'm glad that we have Elspeth Conquers Death. It's kind of a premier one because I actually just kind of love the gameplay pattern here.
Yeah, I played some Arena this morning before the tournament started, and I played some Blue Eye Control. And I had that thing you were talking about where I Shattered the Sky, and then I played Elspeth Conquers Death. My opponent was just conceded immediately. They're like, yeah. I had a Dream Trawler on the board, and they were just like, oh, well, yeah, if you're ready to just like kill your own Dream Trawler, I'm dead. So, all right, we're going to jump into game number 2 here. Looks like Phil is going to be on the play. I think both players happy with their 7, which is nice. Let's see. All right, so it looks like actually maybe mulligan a 6 here for Phil. He's going to send 1 back. Adam also has 6 cards in hand currently, so let's see. Phil trying to figure out what land to lead off on. It's the struggle in these 3-color decks sometimes. Yeah,
sequencing really important, especially with Uro being an added card. You really want to make sure you hold your black land as long as possible because all your 1-mana interaction tends to be black. If you can play Uro, shock in that Overgrown Tomb, and have access to a Thoughtseize or Fatal Push later, that can be really key to maximizing your mana. So I think that might be why Phil kind of held that Tomb, and we'll see if Adam actually has a Thoughtseize pulled to the front. Looks like he kind of opted to, a little bit more disruption, just an extra layer to clear the path for the 2-card combo we saw.
Yeah, I saw some of the green-white Heliod combo decks, and they are good, obviously, but having access to black mana frees you up for things like Thoughtseize, as you mentioned, additional sideboard cards as well. So I think this is a welcome addition in these Heliod combo decks to kind of protect themselves from counter spells or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and kind of interesting, we see Dead of Winter in Phil's hand, but right now, not a particularly good hand at facilitating a good Dead of Winter.
Right.
And it's awkward. You kind of do have to play the shock lands to maximize your fetches, and that could leave a situation where your Dead of Winter is kind of an overcast of Pyroclasm from time to time. So, there are still some upsides. It doesn't shrink your creatures that are also, snow creatures. So that's part of, I think, why we see Ice Fang Quaddle get tagged by Thoughtseize. That would live through the wrath.
Yeah, Dead of Winter is a sweet one. I think I watched Phil in his 7 card. He actually put one back to the bottom as well. So several of those obviously in the deck. Dead of Winter is not a card we see a ton of. I was also mentioning like the Snow Permanent Matters cards. On Thin Ice is one I haven't seen a lot of, and I really want that to like see some play, but I just don't know. Maybe it's just a wish I'll never get granted.
Yeah, Blue-White Control could certainly play it. It seems like it fights with Winds of Abandon for kind of that like 5th bad Path to Exile spot. Yeah. So, it's being a bad card in Blue-White Control is kind of a tough spot to be in, though, all things considered. Although I do love those Chain to the Rocks effects, and I think we'll see it sometime.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. See, Phil actually peels a Thoughtseize off and going to Thoughtseize Adam back and says, you know what? 2 can play at this game. Going to try and pick apart Adam's hand here and going to take the Kitchen Fink. So there's a Spike Feeder, a pair of lands, and a Giver of Runes hanging out on Adam's side. And Adam's down to 15. Okay. Fetch, Shock, and Thoughtseize brings you down to 15. There's a Heliod as the pickup there, and yeah, it looks pretty good. Pretty good here for Adam.
Yeah, not too bad. It's actually kind of interesting. Is Phil's deck capable of winning through infinite life? I mean, if that happens, Phil might be able to deck, but even just the fact that he cast Thought Scour Milling himself could have thrown that math out of the out of whack almost already.
All right, so Adam, 3rd land here. Probably going to slam dunk this Heliod. And I think he has actually a pair of... Is that a pair of Heliods in hand now?
Yeah, so Adam doesn't really have to respect too much when it comes to playing this first Heliod.
Yeah.
It's sort of free. One's going to be dead in hand if this one doesn't get countered. So run it out. And honestly, not sure if you saw Archmage's Charm game 1, but that Overgrown Tomb would actually stop that counter from being cast.
Yeah, it's interesting there. Dead of Winter is interesting as well because it does get around the Indestructible clause on Heliod as well. So, it's going to take some work, but it does get around that. Phil picks up another land here.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Adam, knowing Dead of Winter is in Phil's hand, he almost wants to do everything he can to avoid turning his god into a creature.
Yeah. Yep. All right, so Adam attacking in with the the tough Giver of Runes. Going to smack Phil for just a smidge here. Phil looks like going to fetch out both of these lands.
Yeah, and Adam not really wanting to play anything into what's now Cryptic Command mana. So, as it is, this Giver of Runes is a little bit on the medium side, but it can start to kind of snowball with Heliod's activated ability, growing it over time. And if you don't want to cast your Spike Feeder right now, I think it's about the next best thing you could do.
Okay, Phil going to get out a Breeding Pool here. I wonder what he's got. He shocked it in obviously there, and he's got Cryptic Command. He's just going to bounce the Heliod and draw a new card here. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, which, bouncing Heliod before damage does stop the Giver from growing, and that is kind of important. Phil fetching that Breeding Pool means that his Dead of Winter is still going to be just a -2/-2.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Giver has to stay exactly the size it is.
Yeah. All right. So Phil going to untap here. Draw a fresh one. Ooh, he picked up Kalitas for the turn there.
Ooh, that's a pretty big deal. The question is, we also see Polluted Delta, which is going to be required to cast it, and seems like a pretty solid spot for Kalitas, although it can't really quite work its magic, mowing down creatures as long as Giver is kind of playing a bit of defense.
Right. All right, so Phil fetches out a snow-covered swamp. Going to stick this Kalitas down and hope that's good enough to ride to victory. Adam, I wonder if he has Path to Exiles in his deck post-board. I know he had the 4 in the board, but Kalitas might not be a card on his radar coming in from Phil.
Yeah, and it's tough because, based on what Adam saw game 1, Ice Fang Quaddle is kind of a miserable thing to path. You're always giving your opponent an advantage if you do so. And Tarmogoyf is, okay, but can kind of be ignored by how big Adam can go. So Here we see the Spike Feeder deployed. It is one half of the Infinite Life Heliod combo. For 1 green, you get a 0/0 that comes into play with 2 +1/+1 counters. You can remove or spend 2 mana to remove a counter and put a +1/+1 counter on another creature. And you can also remove a counter from Spike Feeder to gain 2 life. So in conjunction with Heliod, remove a counter, gain some life, put a counter back on, go crazy.
All right, so Phil going to use Dead of Winter. And there's some clarification going on how Spike Feeder and Kalidas works. I believe that card should be exiled here as well. I think it's in the graveyard. Both of those should be exiled.
Yeah, and definitely relevant stuff. Adam is a deck that probably has Scavenging Ooze hanging out in it, so want to make sure we have no extra food hanging out.
Yep, so they got that taken care of as Phil comes crashing in with Kalidas here. Second zombie. All right. So Adam going to have the turn back here, and he's got no board. 3 lands. Phil's got to be feeling pretty good about his chances here.
Yeah, and this is where you kind of regret the choice of putting Heliod in your deck. It just doesn't have any text, in a spot like this. Your combo card got wiped off the board last turn. It just, it kind of does nothing until it does everything.
Okay. All right, so there's a Anafenza Kintree Spirit here. All right, so we're going to make sure that Phil, I'm not sure if he has to have a second zombie or not. I think they're trying to figure out if the second zombie should be there. Or was one killed? One was killed by Dead of Winter, maybe? I'm unsure.
Yeah, because I think Spike Feeder actually gained life and killed itself in response to the Dead of Winter. I think might have been what happened there.
Okay.
Yeah, so in which case, heads up play by Adam. I think really, really easy to kind of miss that. Like, oh well, that's good. Here's your solid 2-for-1.
Sure.
But
all right, so it looks like no harm, no foul here. All right, as they get this figured out, looks like we're all good. And Adam just plays Anafenza here, and probably going to send it Phil's way again. All right, so Phil has another Ice Fang. Yeah, Ice Fang is one of the cards, like it's the glue in these kind of decks. And not only is it great against the aggressive decks, it just draws you deeper into your deck. It helps you hit your 3rd land drop. A lot of good utility in that one.
yeah, it's pretty wild. When Modern Horizons was first floated as an idea, I heard a lot of people talking about how they wanted Baleful Strix, put into the format. And Wizards heard them, but decided, how about a Baleful Strix that your opponent doesn't know if they're attacking into it?
Great.
And it's a wild card. It does wonders against, the Infects and Death Shadows of the world, and actually can just swing matchups. If your opponent cares about attacking with creatures, Ice Fang is always going to be an all-star.
Yeah. All right, so Adam has 4 lands. He just picked up a Collected Company for the turn. He also has a Thoughtseize, but not a way to break through Phil's counter magic if he wants to send a Thoughtseize in here.
Yeah, and it's tough. Knowing Cryptic Commands on top and not being able to cast Thoughtseize and your own Collected Company this turn means, Adam might come to the conclusion that he just kind of has to cast the Company now while there's a chance Phil isn't currently sitting on another counterspell.
Yep. All right, so Adam sends it back, and he's going to do it. Yeah, in Phil's upkeep, going to go ahead and try for a Collected Company. I think Phil has Archmage's Charm. Yeah, he's just going to go ahead and fire that off and counter that. And
yeah, not ideal from Adam, but still he did kind of deny Phil the opportunity to play Cryptic for the rest of the turn cycle. Yeah. And the problem is the board's looking pretty bad too. And Anafenza by itself, trading with a zombie, just makes another zombie courtesy of Kalidas, and Adam's going to have to take his medicine. And I actually think this is 6 damage, so it doesn't quite turn off the Horizon Canopy, but that land is actually kind of on borrowed time.
Yeah, it's tough here for Adam to get back into this one. He's going to untap and see what he's got. He's got Heliod.
I think Heliod, and a handful of cards as we go to the next game here.
All right, so Phil going to even things up here in our second game, and Sultai Snow looking pretty good there. I'm wondering if, as you see Adam's grabbing some of these Path to Exiles, I was wondering if they would come in the third and final game here, as you see these guys are readjusting their sideboards for game number 3. Kalidas did a lot of work in that game. It's just going to shut down several pieces, and if Phil's able to stick that with some removal spells, it's going to be really tough for Adam to win.
Yeah, the combo of Kalidas plus Sweeper was fantastic, and, again, really all I think Phil's trying to do is just keep the board under control. 1 or 2 creatures are fine. Just make sure that you don't allow Adam to stack all of these synergies and really threaten a combo, and that just gives you freedom to tap out for a card like Kalidas.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just taking a look through the sideboards here to see if anything else strange will come in, but it doesn't really look like there's a lot of things that are going to change. Again, on Adam's side, I assume at least a couple of these Path to Exiles are going to come in. He still hasn't seen an Uro out of Phil's deck, but Path to Exile is pretty decent against that. Hard to put a whole bunch of these in your deck, though, because you dilute the combo. Your deck just gets worse. You don't want to be the control deck against the control deck.
Yeah, it's tough. My kind of general philosophy is, all right, you cut an Anafenza from your deck for a card like Path to Exile, it's probably better, right?
Yeah,
the quality of your cards improves as long as your path can find a good target. Phil's deck has a reasonable number of solid ones. I think, the first 2 paths seem reasonable, especially because you can't really ever execute your backup beatdown game plan if there's a Gwei for Kalidas in the way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he did see Tarmogoyfs in game 1 there as well, so that makes total sense. So thinking about the upcoming events, again, if you haven't had the pleasure of hanging out with us yesterday playing Pioneer or today playing Modern, again, we have $150,000 in the prize pool for 2020. 3 players tour invites culminated in our end-of-the-year 16-player $20,000 championship. So some ways to qualify for that. You can play in these events that we have as we had today. And next month, March 21st and 22nd, Team Constructed, Pioneer Modern and Legacy, as well as Pioneer on Sunday. Pick up some points towards Season 1, or you can just do it in one shot. If you want to play a $10,000 showdown in April 4th, that is, in Naperville, you win that thing. Not only did you qualify for our 16-player $20K at the end of the year, you qualify for the Players Tour also. Yeah,
pretty absurd amounts of value in one tournament. We're going to be playing some Modern again, and the format will... Actually, is that timeout? That's going to be pretty close to the release of Ikoria,
I believe it's the week after, yeah. Something like that.
So going to be interesting, wild Modern, and, I just think I see that much value. It's kind of hard to keep me away. So I'm excited. I think I'm going to be in the booth for that one. But, yeah, hope to see a lot of folks there as we play our first showdown of the year.
For sure.
And looks like we're going into Game 3. Both players not quite having mulligan yet, but Phil, after being in the tank for a little bit, decides to take one.
Okay. So Phil takes a mulligan. Adam looked like happy with the 7 cards. Man, we haven't seen like several cards in Phil's list. We haven't seen any Arkham's Astrolabes, no Jaces, no Sapcasters, and no Uros. It's a lot of cards to be missing as he's kind of like getting through his deck rather quickly. It's interesting.
Yeah, especially, I've cast a lot of Arkham's Astrolabe, a lot of it in, some of the Urza decks pre-ban, and it just was one of those cards where you didn't really notice it, but the games where you cast an Astrolabe on one, it just seemed like your win rate kind of rose a sneaky 5 or 6%. So, having the perfect mana, enabling your Dead of Winters and Ice Fang Quaddles, I think, Phil would be looking for that card and be pretty excited to have it in his opening 7 here.
Yeah, I agree. Looks like he's going to be happy with this one. There's several lands. There's a Thoughtseize in there, and I believe there's an Uro actually hanging out as well. So Phil going to keep 6, and we're off to the races here. Adam's going to be on the play. And Adam going to lead us off here. Going to fetch out that Verdant Catacombs.
Yeah, we'll see if this is a game where Adam has Acceleration or Disruption. Temple Garden, my guess is we're going to see either a Mana Dork or, Noble Hierarch coming down. And, pretty powerful. I think one of the, maybe not true anymore, but for a long time, one of the best cards in Modern.
Yeah.
Kind of a stalwart. You saw it a lot in Humans. Infect, just does so much.
I agree. So Phil's going to be able to break up a little bit of what Adam's got going on. You see, oh, wow, Anafenza, Kintree Spirit again, Scavenging Ooze, and there's a Ranger Captain of Eos, which is pretty powerful in this deck.
Yeah, lots of flexibility for Ranger Captain. It has access to grab a Walking Ballista. You can get a, Giver of Runes for some protection. If you want to double down on Mana Dorks, extra Noble Hierarchs are always fine. I think it's definitely going to be Ranger Scavenging Ooze, and Phil kind of showing how much he does care about his own graveyard. Scavenging Ooze kind of biting the bullet here.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure Phil has that Uro in hand, which is one of the considerations into taking Scavenging Ooze itself. And Adam gets to untap here and finds another land. Yeah, the Ranger Captain Evios is sweet. It's another way to pick up your combo pieces. It's one of the more underrated cards, I think, coming from Modern Horizons.
Yeah, lots of flexibility with it. The fact that it is the God, what was the original one called? Just
Captain of Eos.
Just Captain of Eos. Yeah,
or Ranger of Eos is the
Ranger.
name of it,
Yeah, the fact that you can collect the company into the effect now, very strong.
Yeah.
And just the temporary silence is exactly the margin that you need to give yourself an extra turn against combo, or maybe stop a timely Supreme Verdict.
Yeah, this one is quite good. I remember the first time I saw this card being played in Modern was in Death Shadow decks. They were going in and getting Death Shadows with that ability, as we mentioned. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost 1 or less. Get to reveal it, which Adam does, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. You mentioned that last line of text, sacrificing it. Opponents can't cast non-creature spells this turn. Again, pretty important against wrath effects, planeswalkers, things like that. You want to slow down. It's a pretty good one.
Actually, pretty interesting. That Ranger Captain grabbed Carrion Feeder for Adam. So, yeah, there's not a ton of things that Adam's really happy in sacrificing on the board, but it is a card that's pretty good just against removal spells. If your opponent's going to kill your combo pieces and try and pick you apart that way, you're still going to get some value back. And
yep. All right, so here comes...
Yeah, and there is some infinite potential here as well. Carrion Feeder does combine with Anafenza and Kitchen Finks to give you infinite life and make a huge Carrion Feeder as well. So beyond just the resiliency, there is a bit of a combo aspect there too.
All right, well, Adam has quite the board built out. And, yeah, so Phil going to just take the hit here. I don't know. Yeah, Adam's just one piece away from combo and Phil out. Phil's going to fetch here as well, go down to at least 10.
Yeah, and it's tough. This is one of those situations where Phil is behind enough on board that he's going to have to continue to tap out and make some game actions, but doing so opens himself up to, not be able to counter a collected company, just Heliod, any number of really powerful things can slip through. And here's our first Uro sighting, although, not the ideal matchup for it. Not quite playing against a burn or prowess deck.
Yeah, all right. So Phil going to pick up another card and going to go ahead and play an additional land thanks to Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath. You see there. For 3 mana, it's a 6/6. When it enters the battlefield, you sacrifice it unless it is escaped. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you may gain 3 life, draw a card, and then you may put a land card from your hand on the battlefield. Phil has the escape covered here. It's 4 mana, and he's got a fetch land, a Thought Scour. He's got plenty of ways to fuel this graveyard for this Uro.
Yeah, absolutely. And Misty Rainforest Scarab on the second green, too. So if that's what he wants to spend his next turn on, everything is definitely cleared for takeoff. It's just going to be a question of, if Adam can get the battlefield threatening enough, it's possible Phil kind of might have to leave Uro in the graveyard, at least for a little bit. It's hard, though. 4 mana at sorcery speed is quite the tax.
Yeah. All right, let's see how Adam decides to carry on here. I believe is that Tarmogoyf a 4? Oh, no, there's a Scavenging Ooze in there already. Okay. So it has not scaled up at all. Adam doing some thinking here.
Yeah, and Adam doing a pretty good job of kind of just ignoring the Goyf.
Yeah.
Between just being a deck that doesn't really do much beyond be a stack of creatures, you don't add much for it. And, the Ranger Captain plus Noble Hierarch just sort of lets him out-muscle it for now, too.
Yeah, he's in pretty decent shape, honestly. And there's another Ranger Captain. Okay. Gonna go get probably Giver here to protect. Adam peels the Giver to the front.
Yeah, other options, Walking Ballista is a little bit,
yeah,
kind of not great here.
Yeah.
An extra Noble Hierarch is similarly kind of whatever with Adam having a lot of mana available to himself.
All right, and there's the Giver of Runes.
Yeah, and here we see a much better Anafenza game than what we saw last time. Just when you compare it with other creatures, it is a 2-drop that started off as a 2/2, but it's been worth an extra 3 power and toughness already, and that's just going to continue to chug along and also be part of this combo threat. So Yeah, I think Anafenza in your bad draws will be a little bit on the embarrassing side, but it absolutely does have some benefits too. And the fact that, being a combo piece that actually gets you most of the way to an active Heliod is pretty clever.
Yeah. You see Carrion Feeder going to come on in here, and this one's pretty scary. I remember when I played the the Golgari deck. Carrion Feeder is kind of like, whatever, but there's 3 creatures. There's actually 5 creatures on the battlefield that can be sacrificed to that and put a pretty big sting on Phil. It's also pumped by this Noble Hierarch here in combat, so Tarmogoyf doesn't even trade with it. It's pretty good.
Yeah, although Phil could kind of take a interesting line here. Fetching and Thought Scouring himself could put a type in that, it doesn't necessarily kill the Carrion Feeder, but it could force a trade, and I don't know, I guess.
I don't think there's instant in the graveyard yet, right?
Okay, yeah.
So this is gonna be straight up gonna pump that Tarmogoyf 100%.
Yeah, and it's interesting, kind of Phil allowing the trade to happen between Goyf and whatever creature Adam wants Goyf to trade with. So still, even though it can remove something, it's going to be, basically just an edict effect here.
All right, so Thought Scour. And there's an artifact in there as well now. Goyf's rather large.
Yeah, and the second type is actually pretty solid here. Forcing Adam to double sacrifice. All right, then you're getting into a good exchange. And looks like with this Goyf trade and the battlefield reduced a bit, all of a sudden Uro looks like it could hold the rest of the board down much better.
Okay, yeah, and Adam goes ahead and makes that trade of the 2 creatures, and that's pretty substantial there. And Phil has Uro available this turn if he wants. He's got, man, that's pretty good. Yeah, he's going to go ahead and escape Uro here and peel out the bad cards. It's an interesting way to delve cards away. Not delve, I guess. Exile the cards away with Uro and Tarmogoyf. It's like a weird push and pull in your deck here.
Yeah, and Snapcaster Mage, too, you really do have a lot of things to consider. And I do kind of like the idea of stocking your graveyard up as much as you can until you aggressively trade the Goyf away and do a lot of delving.
I'm wondering, did the I think Adam should have taken 1 from that Giver of Runes from paying with Horizon Canopy. Is that right? We'll get our table spotter to check on that. So you might want to pause them here for just a second just to make sure. I think the Ranger Captain was the 3 mana. Did he use Noble Hierarch? Okay, he used Noble Hierarch?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. You see Uro hit the battlefield here, though, for Phil, and that's pretty substantial stuff. It's a 6/6. It's currently the biggest thing on the battlefield. Obviously, Carrion Feeder has a little bit to say about that, but it's not too bad here.
Yeah, and the frustrating thing is that Giver of Runes, it can make a Carrion Feeder unblockable, and we can kind of run the same attack as last turn from Adam's perspective. If you're willing to trade, again, 2 creatures for an Uro, you can kind of lock it down for a while, and then if the Uro comes back yet another time, well, it just won't be big enough anymore for the feeder.
Yeah. Yeah, Uro's been pretty impressive over the weekend across both Pioneer and Modern here. Being able to gain 3 life every turn is not anything to shake your head at. And there's Kitchen Finks for Adam.
Yeah, Kitchen Finks being kind of the ideal card for the double Carrion Feeder sacrifice, just costing Adam substantially less in the exchange, and especially because these Ranger Captains can really provide some value locking Phil out of spells.
Sure. All right, well, let's see. Phil's up to 13. And we'll see how Adam wants to attack here.
Yeah, it's interesting. A couple of different ways to go about it. If Uro blocks, you don't have to sacrifice 2 creatures.
Right.
You can always sack 1 thing and then give the Carrion Feeder protection. But I kind of like the double sacrifice because that keeps the Carrion Feeder alive if Phil has a removal spell to use for the next turn.
Yeah. So Adam makes an attack with both of the Ranger Captains and the Carrion Feeder, and Phil says, let me think about how I'm going to block here. This is really interesting. It's a tough block because, there's so many different variables with Carrion Feeder being able to sacrifice things, with Giver of Runes giving something protection. There's just a lot going on right now, and it's hard to pick apart.
Worth noting that Adam's last card is also an Anafenza, which means that the combo is all here, just part of it is currently off the board.
Yeah.
And Adam did make that decision last turn to sacrifice the Anafenza, not necessarily costing him in a huge way because his position is still good, but kind of making that angle a little bit harder to achieve.
Sure. Phil's in a really tough place here. And he's got Ice Fang Kotal, he's got Archmage's Charm. He's got a lot of stuff going on. Charm is quite interesting. If Phil wants to line... Man, this is really complicated stuff. So if Phil wants to line up a way to get this giver to activate, he can steal it. He can steal the Carrion Feeder with Archmage's Charm. And there's a lot going on here.
Yeah, the charm stealing Carrion Feeder kind of just straight up removes it because of the Adam would rather sack it than give it over to Phil. But yeah, now that the giver kind of saved the Ranger, I feel like that opens the door a little bit for Phil just because the Carrion Feeder is at risk now, and then once that dies, the combo's gone.
Yeah.
And Adam has nothing else to crash with the arrow.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's really interesting. I wonder if Phil wants to get to that line. If he comes to that line. This is the fun one here. Let's see what we do here for Phil. Let's see. So Phil's thinking about attacking here to try and gain 3 life and to draw a new one here. There is that Kitchen Finks hanging out in that, I don't know what you call it, a middle row, I guess, right now.
It's not red zone, I guess resting zone.
Yeah,
just hanging out.
So Phil is doing some thinking. I think maybe he's talking to Adam's cards and seeing what he thinks you should do. I'm not quite sure. All right, so Uro going to attack, and that's going to trigger draw a card for Phil. Yeah. Phil's going to gain 3 life as well. Wow. Assassin's Trophy?
Yeah, so Phil kind of overloaded with removal, and I think might just have enough mana to cast it all.
Yeah.
Especially with that Misty Rainforest coming to play off the Uro attack.
Wow, he's got a lot going on. All right, Adam's going to take this hit for 6. Yeah, tapping the giver is... Man, I think that's going to cost Adam big time here. So you can see Phil has pulled Archmage's Charm to the front of his hand and tapped 3 mana.
Yeah. I think Phil might want to make sure he doesn't tap overly low on black mana here, because then that could make the Assassin's Trophy really painful off of Misty Rainforest.
Yeah, and he's going to go ahead and he's going to try and take that Carrion Feeder, as I mentioned a little bit ago here. Wow. That's huge. So Carrion Feeder going to sacrifice. And man, Phil's got the goods here. He's up to 8. That's high ball game here.
Yeah, and as the board sits, Phil does need to do something else. The Finks and Double Ranger captains are representing lethal, and now that the giver's untapped, the first removal spell doesn't quite get there. So I'm curious what Phil has planned for the rest of that mana, because there's got to be something going on to not fire off your removal while the giver's shields are down.
Yeah, I think he has the Ice Fang Codal in hand here. I don't think that actually has Death Touch yet. The Misty Rainforest, I suppose, could turn it on with a single snow-covered permanent. Okay. And this is... Gets to draw a card here. All right, and Adam going to sacrifice that Horizon Canopy to draw a card. Yeah, Phil's going to try and block. Did I miss something?
Yeah, right now Adam doesn't have to act with Giver until Phil cracks the Misty Rainforest. So I think patience is certainly key here.
Okay.
A Fatal Push isn't fantastic for Phil, even if the Giver gets tapped, because it would cost Phil as much life as he's saving, killing whatever 3-power creature.
Okay. All right, so Phil going to take a little hit here. And there's the Anafenza we mentioned. So Phil's at 2, Adam's at 8. And this game's gotten good, that's for sure.
Yeah, Uro against the world. I can't think of a better draw than Dead of Winter here. Being able to wipe the entire board, leaving your 6/6 around, and against just kind of a pretty measly Kitchen Finks.
Yeah, it's interesting. I I don't think Adam actually even needed to give it protection there, right? He could have just let it go straight up until Phil acted.
Yeah, Phil was short 1 snow permanent. So a pretty common misconception is players thinking the Coatl counts itself.
Yeah,
so I think that might have been what Adam was thinking there.
So Phil going to fetch out, go down to 1, which is basically the same as 2 here. And he finds a snow-covered island. I think he has Thought Scour available. Yep, Thought Scour. Cryptic. Okay. He's going to sack one of these Rangers, you think, Adam? He could, right? Should, right? Yeah. So he's going to sack one.
Cutting off the possibility of Dead of Winter, and I think now Phil needs some Cryptic command effect, whether it's the Snapcaster or a natural Cryptic from hand.
Yeah. So Phil can... Yeah, this is pretty tough for him. I don't know how you get back in this.
Yeah, I mean, it is worth noting that Adam's at 8, so Phil can just attack this turn and have a Cryptic tap. He can't put together lethal if Adam can't find just one extra chump blocker.
Yeah.
And looking at this deck list, a lot of creature piles, do feature Dryad Arbor to fetch if they're base green, but this one doesn't have it, so Adam does not have access to, a surprise blocker, and that's the Dead of Winter, but it is shut off by that Ranger Captain.
Okay. And Phil's at 4. Adam's going to go down probably to 2 here. Oh, he's going to throw the Anafens under the bus. Okay. All right, let's it die. I think, Phil played a land off of Uro and plays a land for turn here. He's got Jace, an Assassin's Trophy.
I think there's a Snapcaster Mage there.
You think so? Oh, that would be awesome. That would be quite good for Phil if there is a Snapcaster Mage hanging out in his hand. Okay. And, I mean, you can't really... This Ranger Captain is... It's good, but how good? It fills up to 4. This has been a good game.
Yeah, just really kind of classic, modern, grindy, interactive Magic. So
I think you're right.
And
wow, I think you're right about the Snapcaster, Phil. I mean, it's just a chump blocker. I mean, there's Assassin's Trophy.
Well, I think Phil milled over a Cryptic with an earlier Thought Scour.
Yes, you're right.
So actually really curious that that Adam was allowed to go to combat, but instead Phil maybe kind of trying to bait out this Giver activation with an Assassin's Trophy.
It seems like that's the case here. So, yeah, as you mentioned, so the Assassin's Trophy is going to fizzle here. Snapcaster Mage. Oh, boy. Now what? Looks like Cryptic Command.
Yeah,
the target.
And this actually works pretty well, too. Phil can just chump block here, and he has Cryptic. Oh, but Collected Company.
In response, there's a Collected Company. Okay. Let's see what Adam hits. It's a Giver. There's a Veil somewhere in there. That's not good enough. What is that first card?
I think it's another Ranger.
Is it a Ranger? Okay. This game is hilarious right now.
Yeah, and I'm not sure this is enough from Adam, though, because...
I don't think so.
Cryptic can still tap the rest of the team, and Snapcaster can still chump. Although, I guess Adam is at 7 because he blocked that Anafenza last turn.
He can sacrifice a Ranger Captain, right, to stop this Cryptic Command from being cast?
Oh, true, because, the Snapcaster ability presumably still hasn't resolved yet.
And he goes... So, Ranger Captain goes and gets Walking Ballista, which is a way to win the game outside of just combat. And he's going to sacrifice the Ranger Captain, looks like. So the Cryptic Command cannot be cast this turn. It's still targeted, but cannot be cast. And Snapcaster Mage going to block. Gonna block one of the Ranger Captain. Phil gonna go down to 1 now. Oh boy. What does Phil have left? He has Jace. Another Uro.
Which actually isn't bad. That's an extra 6 life this turn. If Phil doesn't actually have the 3 green,
it's actually be 9 life. Because he's going to be able to attack with this first Uro. Yeah, he's 1 green mana short. Never mind.
Let's see. Do we have an extra basic forest in the deck?
There is a snow-covered forest. And that's...
Yeah, and that's in play already. So I guess he can make basically just a defensive Uro. One with Vigilance, paying 3 life, fetching Breeding Pool, and then making a new one. Still not bad. I'm not sure it's enough, though.
Wow. Okay, so that's going to get a block out of Adam. And Phil's at 4. Phil's doing the same thing I am, trying to figure out how in the world can he gain enough life to survive. He also has a Jace, the Mind Sculptor, in hand.
Yeah, which has an okay bounce on Giver of Runes, but nothing else really.
Yeah. And this is turn number 1. You can see in the top of the screen there.
Yeah, just an extra layer of suspense added in that, these players have to make sure that, they just not die, but Phil can also set himself up for lethal in what's going to be, he'll have, 2 turns left after this one.
Yeah, Phil's checking his lands there in his graveyard and his exile to make sure he hasn't milled over an additional green source. He goes and gets Mystic Sanctuary. Okay, so now he can he can put back the Cryptic Command on top of his deck. He can cast an Uro to draw that card. And he still has, but there's a Ranger Captain hanging out, so he has to play around that as well. This is a great game.
Yeah, I think we can make an exception for the 5 turns rule. Just give him 6 or 7.
Yeah, man, let him keep going. All right, so here comes an Uro escaping. Or not escaping, excuse me, being cast. It's going to draw Phil a card, put him up to 6. It's going to die. And then, Phil's at 6, so he can't die to this Walking Ballista that Adam has. Now, he has to cast this. Yeah, this is a crazy game.
Yeah, so the Cryptic Command does need to get cast, and that's going to give Adam a window to resolve something behind it in the second main phase, but there's nothing really that fundamentally makes the game really in his favor.
Yeah, he can tap all of Adam's creatures. He can bounce the Mystic Sanctuary here. Adam, we know one of Adam's cards is this Walking Ballista. I think the other card is actually I think he has a Veil of Summer in his hand. Maybe I'm wrong here.
Thoughtseize, and
okay.
I think a Kitchen Finks, too.
Okay, it's a Thoughtseize, okay. Well, Kitchen Finks' play is here. This game might not come to a conclusion. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, the fact that Uro gives a redraw every turn actually kind of lets us be a makeshift Cryptic lock.
Yeah.
Which is wild, and the fact that Sanctuary is the card in hand means Thoughtseize isn't capable of ripping it away and kind of denying that effect.
This is turn number 3 here, so Phil has 2 turns to try and get Adam dead.
God, and the Uro is so sweet. You don't even end up behind lands because Uro gets them extra ones back in play for you. Just
totally fine. All right, so Phil doing some thinking here. It's a tough game to win. He's got 4 mana. This has got to be that going to the Jace here. All right, so Phil goes to the Jace. And he's going to bounce. Wow, bouncing Kitchen Finks. Mystic Sanctuary puts... Yeah, this is a window for Phil to win the game, actually. So he's going to attack for 6, put Adam down to 3. He's going to draw the Cryptic. He's going to play another land. Wow, he's going to get him, I think. Because he can bounce with Jace.
Yeah, Adam can make another blocker, but after Cryptic taps everything and Jace has a bounce, I think that should be it, unless Adam can muster up another creature to block in conjunction with that Walking Ballista.
This is turn number 4, so this is going to be Adam's last turn of the game, so he has to...
I think untapped land actually makes it... Yeah, he can do both now.
So now he can... Yeah, so now he can play... Unless Phil has draws a removal spell or something. I suppose he can't play this pre-combat, or he's going to get completely torn to shreds.
Yeah, let's make sure, say declare attackers, get that Cryptic out.
So Cryptic Command, going to tap the team and bounce the Sanctuary. Now Adam has Kitchen Finks to go up to 5, I believe, here. And then he also has the Walking Ballista. Phil knows about the Walking Ballista here.
Yeah, and Adam has the ability to
boy.
sack the Ranger Captain on Phil's turn and actually kind of deny, I think, any ability to die here.
Yeah, so Phil's going to untap. And the Ranger Captain is sacrificed. Does Phil have a removal spell?
Don't think so, yeah. So
yeah.
Oh, yeah, Jace can take one creature off the field, but there's going to be one thing left in the way, and Uro can't actually cross the finish line, although Phil...
Oh, mercy.
Pretty Herculean effort to get himself in this position.
Yeah, I agree, man. So I think Phil can't cast spells here because of that Ranger Captain. So Jace can bounce the... Man, this is tough. So the thing, too, is if this game was to continue going, Phil's able to bounce the Kitchen Finks and attack. The Ballista would block, and then would also be able to shoot down Jace, which is pretty important.
Yeah, and Phil would still kind of have the ongoing Cryptic Lock attacking with Uro. And, besides actually putting together a combo from Adam's side, that seems like a really difficult thing to actually break loose from. And we know Adam's hand, just sitting on a Thoughtseize, he's kind of far away from that.
Phil was at 9. Yeah, I think. Here's Tarmogoyf. Yeah, so Phil was at 9 that turn. He could have just taken the hit, right, from the 2 creatures or whatever it was.
Yeah, because, Adam could represent lethal with a Walking Ballista with a couple counters on it, but of course that's just a perfectly fine thing to Cryptic too.
Yeah. Wow, yeah, so Phil's going to watch this tape and think, how did I lose this game? And, that's one way to do it.
Yeah, it's understandable, though. When you're like 55 minutes deep in a round with as many close decisions as this one, sometimes stuff slips by you.
That is. All right, and they're going to shake hands, and I can't believe that game actually was that close. And then I thought Phil had the W, and then Phil lost the game, and it was, wow. That was a great one to watch, though.
Yeah, it came at you in waves. Both Adam and Phil having dominant positions at various points. I think if we had a couple more turns, it probably would have gone Phil's way. But, yeah that was worth every minute of it.
Yeah, I'm spent, man. That was a good one. So Phil's deck was really cool, actually, too. We saw Uro kind of take over in the third game, which we didn't see it pop up in either of the first 2 games, but it was good. We also watched, Adam's deck was doing a lot of stuff, and it put a lot of pressure on this control deck to answer every single card that came out. And you saw Ranger Captain of Eos kind of flex the muscles a little bit.
Yeah, we saw a great combo game from Adam. We saw a pretty bad Anafenza game, too.
Yeah.
And, it was really nice to see Uro come out to play because that's just the beautiful, I think, big card advantage engine, besides that Sanctuary Cryptic Lock.
Yeah. All right, well, we're going to get out of here from round number 5. We've got 2 more rounds of Swiss left alongside of a top 8. So we're going to take a short break here. We'll bring you round 6 in just a few minutes.